Alrighty, so here we are on lesson 4, adding and subtracting fractions. So remember, when adding or subtracting fractions, you need a common denominator and then you need to simplify. So if we look at number 1, we have 2 ninths plus 5 ninths. We already have a common denominator, so we just add across the top. 2 plus 5 is 7. So we get 7 ninths, which you can't simplify, so that's our final answer. Number 2 here, we also have a common denominator, so we're just going to subtract across the top. 7 minus 3 is 4, so this would be 4/8, but you can simplify this down to 1/2. Right, number 3 here, we need a common denominator, so I'm looking at 4 and 3 here, and I'm going to make my denominator 12. So then you have to ask yourself, how do we get from 4 to 12? Well, you multiply by 3 on the bottom and the top, so 3 times 3 is 9, so we have 9/12. How do I get from 3 to 12? I multiply by 4 on the bottom and the top, and 2 times 4 is 8. So now I can add 9 plus 8 gives me 17 over 12, which you can't simplify, and you can just leave it as an improper fraction. Number 4 here, again, I need a common denominator, so between 8 and 3, I'm going to make my common denominator 24. So that's what I'm going to be using here. To get from 8 to 24, you multiply by 3 on the bottom and on the top. 7 times 3 is 21. To get from 3 to 24, you multiply by 8 on the bottom and the top, and 2 times 8 is 16. So now I'm going to do 21 minus 16, which is 5, over 24, which you can't simplify, so that's our final answer. Number 5 here, I've got a 6 and a 4, so you might not see it at first, but you can make both of these 12. And even if you went bigger, like 24, you just have to simplify more in the end. So to get from 6 to 12, we multiply by 2 on the bottom, so then on the top, 2 times 5 is 10. To get from 4 to 12, you multiply by 3 on the bottom and the top, so I'd have 9/12. 10 minus 9 is 1, so I'd have 1/12 as my final answer. The last one on this page, I have a 2 and an 8 in the bottom, so I'm going to make both of their denominators 8, which means I do not have to change the second fraction. Yay! So to get from 2 to 8, I multiply by 4 on the bottom and on the top, and 4 times 1 is 4. So when I add across the top, 4 plus 8 gives me 7/8. Okay, so going on to the next page, we're going to look at a few mixed number questions. So it's the same idea. I like to do the whole numbers first. So here I have 3 1/8 plus 2 5/8. So I like to add the whole numbers first by itself. So 3 plus 2 gives us 5. And then work with the fractions. So 1/8 plus 2/8, they're already common denominators. So I would have 3/8. So when I put it all together in the end, I would have 5 3/8. I know some of you have learned how to work down. You can do that as well, as long as you show your work and you get the right answer. So I have 8 3/5 minus 3 1/4. So again, I'm going to work with my whole numbers first. 8 minus 3 is 5. And then my fractions, I have 3/5 minus 1/4. So I need a common denominator. And I'm going to make my denominator out of 20 here. So I ask, how do I get from 5 to 20? Well, I multiply by 4 on the bottom, so the same thing on the top. 3 times 4 is 12. How do I get from 4 to 20? I multiply by 5 on the bottom, so I multiply by 5 on the top. So I get 5/20. So when I subtract, I get 7/20. So my final answer here would be 5 7/20. Okay, we're just going to do one more. So again, I have my whole numbers first, so 4 minus 3 gives me 1. And with my fractions, I have 5/6 minus 3/4. So again, I'm going to make my denominator out of 12. So to get from 6 to 12, I multiply by 2 on the bottom, so multiply by 2 on the top, so I end up with 10/12. And to get from 4 to 12, I multiply by 3 on the bottom, so I multiply by 3 on the top, and 3 times 3 is 9. So when I subtract, I end up with 1/12. So when I put it all back together at the top, I get 1 1/12. Okay, so we're going to stop there for the video, and then we'll do some more practice in class all together.